الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أيها الذين لكم بينكم أموالكم بالباطل إلا أن تقضي منكم ولا تقتلوا أنفسكم الله كان بكم رحيما أفعل ذلك عدوانا وظلما فسوف نصليه نارا وكان ذلك على الله يسيرا إن تجتنبوا كبائر ما تنهون عنه نكفر عنكم وندخلكم مدخلا كريما العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning. I'd like to request all our distinguished guests to join with us to observe a minute of silence and to strongly condemn the horrific attack that have been taken place. Our prayers and thoughts are with the people of Sri Lanka. Thank you. On behalf of the Maldives Pension Administration Office, I, Fatma Tharnan Ahmad, along with to all the distinguished guests to the Maldives Finance Forum 2019. The forum commenced with Ms. Mariam Shamha Ismail.
The Maldives Finance Forum is an event session office in collaboration with our industry partners. The year of our forum, we focus is the backbone of our national economy, contributing to the economic growth for the generations to come, sector for social and economic development. We hope to foster the discussion sector can come together to create a nurturing atmosphere. We are positive discussions lined up for today will be thought-provoking, engaging, and Amnat Shifana, board member of PES. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Amnat Shifana.
Gentlemen, it is a Business Forum 2019. On behalf and also a very warm welcome to Minister of Finance. His busy schedule to inaugurate today is indicative of the administration's commitment towards cultivating an ever peace. This year's forum is especially significant as during the past 10 years, Pension Office has actively rolled out a modern pension system. CEO Mr. Muhammad Hussain Manik and his hard work in standing achievements. Initiatives of the Pension Office kicks off deliberation on financial sector development, event of the finance industry in the Maldives and a policy. The theme of this year's forum is engaging private sector, very appropriate theme given the initiation of new institutions and a strong growth, especially through the revitalization of small to medium enterprises. The pension seen stronger public sector participation, increased job creation, improves pension coverage and help, and secondly, increased opportunities for more resilient pension fund investments. Financial sector development, sustainability of the pension scheme. Important progress has been made with a number of more robust listings, additional banks, insurance companies, and incoming funds to the market. New initiatives for further market development while also promoting ethical and responsible investment practices in the industry. As the largest institutional source of long-term funds for high-quality investments and as envisaged in the also an important partner in resolving the chronic housing shortage through its housing scheme. People already having used this facility, rolling out the Hajj scheme, which will address another major grievance of our members. Annuity products for retiring members of the pension scheme and important to establish a disability insurance scheme. I am optimistic for the future important partner in nation building and improving the lives of all. Your contribution today is an important step towards building a more robust financial climate for the people of the Maldives and the seminars of the day. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Stefana. We are honored to have Minister of Finance as our chief guest today. I kindly request the Honorable
Nasir, CEO of Maldives Pension Administration, distinguished delegates, ladies and it is a great privilege for me to be here at the 8th Maldives Finance Forum as the Administration Office for giving me this opportunity. The Maldives Finance Forum has become one of the largest and most related events to be held in the Maldives. This is an excellent place for government and the private sector to come together and deliberate on the challenges, engaging the private sector for social is of key importance to us. The theme is the policy goals of the government, which is providing a conducive environment. I will touch upon one of the primary means through which we can in social and economic development. This is something that we have not observed to a wide needs to change. This essential element that research and development and creative and sustainable development, we need to ensure that economic trade relations, economic diversification, and technological. We believe that among the top contributors along these front-driven startups and the so-called disruptors. The reason is the aptitude to challenge and change the status quo. Large, established companies address inefficiencies in existing mechanisms. The positive externalities from this are huge. To higher value addition to economic diversification. Growth theory suggests innovation is also the only way through which we can shift our economy onto a higher growth path. It is innovative firms. Fall into these categories here. We can identify how to make the culture of innovation. Looking at economic development, the corporate world forefront of research and development. Innovation being adopted today is based on transparency or with an emphasis on data sharing and the if we can move towards this new model compared to the traditional model, closed doors, the positive potential for even further innovation and development, expansion of the private sector, and a decrease in reliance on employment. To right-size the public sector workforce and better prospects for our workers. Private sector and give us more room to make change Before concluding, I would like to highlight some of the initiatives of the private sector. One of our key priority is business in the Maldives. Steps are being taken to make business establishments at present. We have a zero tolerance for corruption, business development, and innovation. I'm confident that the changes that we bring to the business climate of the country. We are also reviewing Maldives and will have an equitable and convenient regime for both businesses and individuals. Challenges in obtaining finance, and it is to address this challenge cooperation. I would like to assure you all that we will continue bringing in conducive environment for the private sector will be one of our key priority areas. The Maldives Pension Administration Office, CEO, for giving me the opportunity to speak here, made the forum that has, and wassalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Our 10th anniversary this year. Up next is a video executive officer providing an insight into our 10-year journey.
Since its establishment in 2009, the Maldives Pension Administration Office is newly thought about saving, retirement planning, or save the Maldivian psyche. The Maldives Pension Administration Office is the national institution with the legal to ensure adequate and secure income security at old age. The Maldives is an independent legal entity under the Maldives Pension Act. Over the years, pension system and investment management practices of the national pension system. As embodied in the vision, Pension Office tries to achieve financial stability for a secure future, and this is reflected in the mission. We manage the pension savings of our members, make Pension Office the most trusted, respected, and loved public institution in the Maldives. System funded by the government budget appropriation and contributory pension scheme, where for saving account, which will be made available as pensions when the member retires, or lump sum inheritance payments in deceased cases. Pension Office invests the contributions in various securities as allowed under the Maldives Pension Act and channels the pension contributions are invested in treasury bills, treasury bonds, equity, fixed in 2018, Pension Office has accumulated over 12 billion in pension savings. It has generated a decent return of over 6% since its inception. Despite the challenges in the Pension Office has become one of the largest national institutions across the nation with over 147,000 employees across of Maldives. Our systems manage over thousands of rupiah. We process over 9 pensions and benefit payments per year. To make our services a seamless experience, our infrastructure should function on a 24/7 basis. Without our services is a great national need to gain efficiency and reduce the cost of managing the national pension system. Administration cost for the benefit of our members through this efficiency at Pension Office. We support and engage our members and employers through various awareness programs. Mandatory retirement is hard sell. Despite the challenges with objectives, we will increase our member engagement programs to make the system even more robust and resilient. Our aspiration is to make Pension Office an attractive place for top-class talent, organization today and tomorrow.
Welcome, Mr. Mohammad Hussain Manik.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning to all of you. As you have seen, 10th year of the Pension Office. But really welcome Minister Amir, Governor, and other distinguished persons. It is also useful that this forum has been so successful. Thank you. As you know, Pension Office came to the contributory history of the Pension Office. It's been receiving contributions, first contributions in 2000. Sector enrollment was in 8 and 9 years of contributions. Now, set to work is one of the main responsibilities of the pension. Investment decisions and program investment principles. This is a statement that is published. These are the best, these highest guidelines that we follow in terms of investing activities. And by the investment committee and the board. And it is the up to the management pension assets are allowed to be invested. It is the biggest challenge that we face now. In terms of numbers, you will see there is a very limited investment regime that we have currently in place. The diversification, safety, liquid that is built in the law itself. Funds auctioning system has been implemented to expand investment banks. Recently, what we have done is, in terms of cash that we received, there were previously investment activities, we placed deposits in the banks. But now we have, for transparency's sake, we have built a system of auctioning the system. So the best rate has the best chance to be placed. So in terms of diversification of assets that we have. Now fund size, as you have been as of now, and contributions and we have now added another 2 billion in terms of returns. So basically 9 billion in terms of contributions that we have received and fund assets, in addition to the what we call the recognition bond that is lodged with the Ministry of Finance for about 3 billion. So that makes it 9 plus 3, that makes it about 12 billion. Now, in terms of investment returns, what you see from here table is there is a slightly disheartening thing that we have to point out. The Sharia portfolio, these are investment portfolio, Sharia conservative and recognition bond. You will see the Sharia portfolio having returns much less than the other portfolios. Now, this is one, the reason being that we have no substantial Sharia instruments keep thinking about, and in order to give our Sharia portfolio members. We have about, on an average, overall returns for the first 3 years was since inception, we have about 5.7% returns on average for MRPS members. The it's not actively invested, it's already invested with certain conditions attached to it. So we just keep, ask the Ministry of Finance to redeem that amount to the pension fund, and then we continue to pay the pension to the now, employee age profile. Now, what is so striking about this, if you look at it, now the age cohort of 38% of the fund members, so a very young fund in that sense. A lot of members are very, very young, and they have, let's say, 30 years still to contribute and get into the pensionable wage. So there is a lot of room for that. Now, if you take the 45 age limit, 81% of the members are below 45 years. Now, again, in terms of you flip the side and you say 45 to 65, it's a 20-year time frame. So we easily have a 20-year time frame for our investments. So this is because long-term investments that we can only invest. The opportunities should come from the private sector, public sector, work with the public. So this is a clearly on the liquidity we can invest in projects. Now, average RSA balance per cohort, if you look at it, it's 16 to 25, just people who are starting to contribute. It's not so much, but the reason being, there are two reasons why it is so. Not many people have contributed that long into the system. It's just 7 or 8 years, so you get a balance of 151,000. It's not so surprising. But the challenging thing for us at the moment is the base in which we are getting contributions. Now, you will remember, for people who have looked at this one, we have what you call basic salary is the concept that we ask people to contribute, to determine to contribute. So if in order to reduce the contribution to the minimum RSA balance, C is in future we have of the pensionable wage, reasonable contribution to the sometime back. So there are some people, some employers who contribute basic wage, 30, but there are institutions who contribute, strike a balance in future in order to get a reasonable contributory base for which people to contribute in future. enrollment. Now, in terms of the employees, you have now about 40,000 public sector employees and 60,000 actively contributing to the scheme. So you have about 90,000, 60, let's say, right, 90,000 people who are actively contributing to the scheme, members or registered accounts, because people come in and go out. Their study requirements, employment requirements without any difficulty. And the employers and 70 segregated employers and private sector, and an average per increase in the number by 4,100 per members adding to the scheme. Now, this is contribution collections. Now, we have now hit 1 billion in 2017 in terms of contribution. So, in the notice also you will see that we have now a monthly collection of over 90 million rupiah, so which makes it over 1 billion rupiah. And the fund has been growing 8% per annum on an average since the beginning. In terms of the challenge of diversification, you know, when we started, much of it is in the treasury bills, because that was the only available instrument that we have, 93%. But we have now been able to diversify. In 2018, the status is 54% in that is treasury bills currently, then 36% in T-bonds, again with the government. T-bills and treasury bonds are 5 to 8-year bonds we have, but it's a bit long term, but still better than 1 year. More in future also, because in terms of T-bonds, there are certain things that we can do in terms of what you call issuing infrastructure bonds. We have seen basically a 20-year time frame where we can easily place funds with government projects as well, even private sector projects. This is possible. So, be diversified into longer term and instruments if we can. Then the other challenge is in terms of looking forward to have more of, because the T-bills and bonds are basically instruments. Equity is where we can make. So, we are keenly looking forward to equity or capital market issues of this nature in the future. 2,700 already retired from the system since 2008. We are paying 2,700 pensioners. Also, look at the what you call account keepers or invoice managers for the government other pension systems like civil service, MNDF, police, and other benefit schemes. They are undefined benefit schemes. So, we pay something like 6,500 people every month. Pension payouts, MRPS is something like 58 million a year. Other pensions, it's 1.3 billion a year. Other pensions meaning directly from the budget, the pension amounts that are paid to the people amounts to 1.3 billion a year now. Now, housing scheme, we have said this one, there were 130 loans, the pension balances they have had in their account. This happened because of the two projects that the government has completed, that is Gakoshi and Arabia School. Much of it is basically using the pension money. So, we are hoping that when the housing is available, apartments are available to people, people will start using our pension fund for collateral. Now, MRPS 30-year forecast, if you look at it, now you remember we started in 2010, as of 19, we have now something like 12 billion. So, 10 years from now, it will hit 36 billion. And then look at maybe 50-year time frame, 2050, it's going to hit 100 billion or so in terms of the fund size. It's one of the, I think, the fastest growing fund. You can say the only fund in Maldives of this nature, but it's something that is exceptional, and then we should protect this. Designed to cater, I think we should continue to protect this in that sense, and for the development of the country in terms of projects, and finally getting the pension liability out, basically give pensions through the system, and then government doesn't have to pay or face such heavy burdens on pensions. Now, bridging gaps in diversification expansion. Now, if these been real returns per annum since inception about 2.13%, but inflation, I mean, you'll remember we had a bit of an inflation recording in 2010 and 11, where what you call even the T-bill rates hit 10% and above. So, I mean, it came down now, and then we have been able to give. But the other chart that we wanted to show is even internationally in terms of asset allocations that we have, you will remember much of it is in equity. About 40 to 60% of the pension assets are placed in equities. So unless we are able to get a substantial placement in equities and variable income things, we stand to be fixed on whatever we can get from the government securities of T-bills and T-bonds. So we now, so it's the accumulation for phase of MRPS is expected to continue for the next 2 decades. This presents opportunities to make investment returns, longer term investments and treasury diversification must be pursued. And these are, I think we have basically said. This additional local diversification will reduce the current overexposure to government debt. This is also something that we have to keep in mind. There is a risk of currency diversification also that we have to keep in mind as we go along. We need to diversify into other currencies in order to protect ourselves from a possible, what we call loss of. Now, what we are looking for in the recent term and in the looking expansion of current investment regime. Now, we have, for that purpose, we discussed with the governor also, we have now to look into the current existing investment regime and the legal framework under which it is being operated, and give us a recommendation how we can basically expand into other assets that are not allowed currently under the system. So we will be, there is going to be a mission of the World Bank that is coming in June. So they will prepare that, I mean, they will take some time obviously, but we are trying to get a professional assessment of the current investment regime and the legal framework under which we are working, then propose or find ways of where we can increase the current investment regime to the benefit for all interested parties. Now, retirement annuity products. We are working this arrangement with the allied insurance company. The government has in principle approved the rolling out of the annuity product. So we are working during this year, meaning that there is a demand on the pension office basically to allow payment at the time of retirement. That's what, as members, they want to get something. The current scheme that we run, we cannot allow that to happen. So it's only, but so we are talking with the allied insurance company to facilitate that one, and then get an annuity, meaning a life or other possible options that members can have in terms of how they want to receive their retirement phase withdrawal that we have, whereby we distribute 10 years, give on a monthly basis. So there's going to be then disability insurance schemes. We have already a technical paper done by the World Bank funded studies have been completed. So we'll have to work with the stakeholders to see how we can take this forward. So there is the concept of during their contributory phase, how they are pension. So this is what we are looking at. So if serve and work out, there is a legal in the law, we might have to change it. Then voluntary schemes. Now, executing additional funds voluntarily, but we are looking at other voluntary Hajj, or I mean targeted, and housing finance schemes, and obviously we are looking for greater social position now to basically engage ourselves in other related social needs of the country in the pension office. So we are looking into the possibility in that sense as well. I think we have an opportunity to do that, and we would certainly idea also. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you, CEO. This hall. We will resume with the next agenda at 10:30. Thank you. As we are about to begin, we kindly invite you to be seated. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Next on the agenda is a presentation on SME development policy in Maldives by Registrar of Companies, Ms. Mariam Wissam. Please welcome Ms. Mariam Wissam.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Since this is the session after the morning break, I would like to take this forward in a more casual manner. I'll just take you through the outline of my presentation. I'll be speaking a little bit about the status quo of SMEs in Maldives, and I'll also show some data as to how SMEs has registered with us so far. And agree with me that there's a need to shift our policies towards a more SME conducive environment. And for that purpose, of course, I will be sharing with you what are the lessons we have learned so far and how we intend to move forward from here. And apart from that, I have to, since there are so many SMEs and many other stakeholders who do provide guidance to the government as well as the private sector, this is not, our approach is, yes, a holistic evolutionary process. We do continue to take feedback from all stakeholders, be it government, other stakeholders, like line ministries as well as private sector. So even after today's presentation, if you have any comments, any suggestions as to what are those things we need to focus further in moving forward, we'll be more than happy to listen to you. And before I start off, I should also thank the Maldives Pension Administration Office for providing us those initiatives which are already underway, so that the private sector as well as the SMEs are aware as to what we are doing and how we could, of course, if we are to relate with this year's team, how could we possibly relate the developments underway in a more private sector centric, SME centric. I'll move ahead with my presentation. I'm not quite sure how many forum that we held for all scale of businesses, not only SMEs per se. Following this government's assumption of public office, we basically initiated a process, I would rather say 5 long months, trying to understand what are those difficulties faced by SMEs and generally business sector as a whole, and how could we possibly tackle these challenges, and what is it that the government could possibly do in order to immediately take action in certain instances, and of course certain strategies, policies requires a little bit more time. So this is what we basically came up with, right? So this is again not an exhaustive list, but of course when we spoke to most of the SMEs, also business tax system, so it was always issues with compliance, issues with the system, how it's designed, and I think all of you would have carefully heard what our Honorable Minister of Finance has mentioned during his inaugural speech, that of course this entire system is already under review, and we will of course be coming up with a more conducive system for the for businesses including SMEs. And apart from the second major issue that was flagged to us was in relation to labor. Not necessarily about the quota regime itself, but also all these issues in relation to illegal workers who are currently part of our workforce. Businesses as well as the private sector join hands along with the government to legalize a lot of these workers, and what sort of policies could the government perhaps to us. And of course, I think this is something all of us should be happy with. Previously, it was number one issue was access to finance. But now, yes, access to finance is still a challenge for almost all the SMEs, but moved a step further, of course, with the establishment of the SME Development Finance Corporation, which would eventually become a SME bank. And of course, the Business Center Corporation, I don't intend to go too much, I will not be going to the details of these 2 points because my colleagues, Mr. Zeenath as well as Ms. Lamia, will be giving in-depth presentation in these areas. And of course, the other 3 key issues were number 4, entrepreneurship ecosystem. We don't have, I think you would have already heard, we do have limitations when it comes to exchanging data, also access to data by private sector institutions, including SMEs. And the other area is, of course, the legal framework. We do have, we have a legal framework which is somewhat enabling, but we have to work more, especially in terms of bringing in certain reforms. And of course, in my presentation, I will also be sharing some of these legislation for businesses. And not the last, but I would also like to point that sectors, those were discussed throughout the sessions, was guest houses, how local tourism could be further enhanced, and what sort of support is required by the government. And construction sector, F&B, education sector, as well as the ICT sector. And I'm sure there are some, we will be hearing from the ICT sector, from private sector players during this forum. So let's take a look at what we are referring to as SMEs and what sort of distribution we are looking at this point. Spent almost 8 clear years of a legal framework or having a specialized legislation for the purpose of enhancing or creating policies which is more conducive for SMEs. We have not necessarily succeeded, I would say, and this chart itself gives you a very good indication that we have not succeeded in this, because these are the businesses who have categorized themselves as SMEs throughout the past 5 years. And why are we looking at such a small number? One of the reasons is because there has not been, the government has not necessarily devised incentive schemes which basically cater to all their needs, right? So when I say all their needs, various stages of their life cycles. And because of this limitation, and because a lot of entrepreneurs did not necessarily see why they should register themselves as a micro, small, or medium enterprise, they just went ahead with their business registration, and whenever they had to apply for a loan which is announced by the public sector, they would usually come back, or be it a bank, they would usually come to our ministry and just get a one-off categorization, and that's all, right? So with this chart itself, what I'm trying to tell you guys is that it's important that when we think in moving forward from where we are, holistic approach when it comes to agreeing on what should be a definition for SME, and also should we necessarily be focusing on a turnover vis-a-vis employees-based definition. So this is something we have to discuss, right? And of course, when we move forward in the pipeline for the purpose of, amongst those legislations to which we will be proposing amendments. So of course, this is also something we will be tackling in the future. And so with this kind of a distribution, we have come to a realization that over the past years, yes, we have tried to cater for SMEs, but we have not necessarily succeeded. So these are the main lessons that we have learned so far. Initiated by the government is not the best way to move forward. There should be a continuous process when it comes to SMEs to interact with the key financial sector stakeholders in accessing finance. And this is exactly the reason why this government has established the SME Development Finance Corporation, to provide a continuous avenue for each and every business to come forward and apply for various financial products offered by the SME Finance Corporation. And then, of course, the other one is the broader spectrum of financial products that is required for SMEs. It varies. It's not necessarily just loans. All of you would agree in Maldives, in the context of Maldives, we have always been talking about loans. And capital market development, one of the reasons why Mr. Aushan is also here, so I should touch a little bit on this. One of the reasons why capital market development is hindered is because we are so much focused on loans, and that's all. We don't necessarily want to nurture our business in such, within 5 to 10 years or 10 to 15 years. You don't necessarily have a plan that you will give up a certain percentage of the stake of your company to various potential investors through the capital markets. That ideal There are other reasons too. I mean, I agree that we have to create a more conducive environment for enabling disclosure, as well as our market depth has to be increased. Financing expansion of your company. Do you have the confidence that the Maldivian market is equipped with that 5 million rupiah? I think we need answers. Of course, the legal framework, relevant laws and regulations should be enhanced. Also, certain legislations has to be. These are issues for small-scale entrepreneurs. They need to know what sort of risk they are taking and what sort of mitigation factors could possibly in place in case of failure. So, for this purpose, a lot of SMEs are reluctant to expand their business. They tend to remain comfortable in their comfort zones and not expand or think about what new venture would I possibly pursue in the next 5 years. Yeah, and apart from that, the importance of entrepreneurship ecosystem, as mentioned by our Honorable Minister of Finance, does not only focus on providing access to finance and providing a conducive environment through the generally globally acceptable trends such as innovation. Who are the disruptors? What incentives could the government and the private sector, large corporates could provide to these kinds of? Personally believe that in Maldives we don't necessarily we have not matured our ecosystem to a level where we provide all these, we provide all these products. So as a result, when it comes to carrying out research, they have to carry out their research on their own. When it comes to advocating for a policy, they have to do it by themselves. So this ecosystem has to be changed, and we don't have, I have to emphasize that we don't have much time to just, spend another 5 years with the existing framework. We have to do it immediately, because globally we have to catch up, and we have to also create an environment whereby local businesses, for this purpose, we have to, of course, change the way we look at. We need to advocate SME development for the purpose of achieving the larger economic development goals of the country, right? So these are the key lessons that we have learned so far, and of course we be able to understand what is our SME development strategy and what are those policies that the government is pursuing, and what are those policies in the pipeline. So this is what we are looking at. The three key policies that is currently under development focuses on tax incentives, government procurement policies to provide incentives for SMEs, and of course enabling a more conducive exemption regime in terms of duty exemption targeting SMEs. I think all of you would agree that current duty exemption regime is mainly targeted towards larger projects, opposing to SMEs. And of course, the last one is improving service by government. And this is something, being the Registrar of Companies, something that I have to share with you. Of course, the Ministry of Economic Development and also all the other key stakeholders, we have been looking at various mechanisms by which dishes service to any entrepreneur, right? So this is an area where all the government key stakeholders, all the line ministries who provides various approvals are working on. And of course, again, this is a continuous process. Today we come up with online services. Like this morning I had a complaint that there are certain issues in relation to the payment gateway, and payment gateway is something, for example, something which is out of my control. But then again, what I'm trying to say is that we have to continuously review the processes, the innovations that we come up with in order to ensure that all businesses and all applicants who receive services from government agencies in relation to businesses receive expeditious services, so that they have their valuable time to invest in shaping their business and exploring new opportunities, rather than chasing governments for the purpose of receiving services. Okay, so now I will move to the SME development strategy. So I've basically covered key 10 areas, the process of developing the necessary strategies, as well as what should necessarily be the action plan, but the others somewhat there we have started implementing, I would say. Number one, I'll again leave it to Mr. Zina, then I want to make a note of here is that, yes, access to finance is something we will tackle, and we are going to do it through the SME Development Finance Corporation as well as the business and share in the next two presentations. And apart from that, I think since we have heard so much about how unaware the larger business communities are in terms of what their compliance requirements is, there's a need for the government to provide some sort of support when it comes to being compliant with the existing tax system and also the future tax system. So this is another incentive that we will be providing to small and medium-sized entrepreneurs, and of course this is categorized as assistance for tax compliance. And apart from that, like I said earlier, we have to look at the entrepreneurial ecosystem as an environment has to intervene, government has to sit down with all the private sector players and their issues and challenges. And to this effect, a continuous process which is reviewing the existing policies, processes, procedures, and trying to remove various barriers to trade by startups, right? So this is so far we are working with the business business center corporation, business centers, as well as city councils. Startups, a lot of us, we tend to focus our ideas to Greater Maldives region, but we also have to understand that is worse. This is an area where we have to work on. When it comes to changes to policies, changes to procedures, they are the who have access to the actual procedure. So we have to put in a greater effort to various changes that we bring to our systems and islands and entrepreneurs who are in the outer islands. And earlier we have been focusing on improving government service delivery, and this is an area where we have to focus on, especially coming up with online services and making services accessible for all citizens in the country in terms of business engagement. So in this area we have so far we have already deployed 13 online services when it comes to business, and as well as providing various support. And we are in the process of effective from 15th of April and re-export license regime, whereby importers, exporters, and re-exporters, they have, we believe, makes it easier for startups in Maldives. So this is one of the reasons why we continuously review this. And of course, the other one is the national single window issuances of customs related, trade related documentations initiated, and we, the Ministry of Economic Development, is already working on it. So we are hoping that in the next 2 years, in a much more expeditious manner. And apart from that, we have to always understand that when we are in an evolved, we have to catch up with. I'm sure that when I mentioned about online services as well as changes to the customs policy, they who have not necessarily heard that this change has been brought and this is made effective. So we believe that creating awareness for this is an area where the government is investing in, and I think all of you are working towards establishing a centralized call center service. So we are hoping that in the future, all services, especially business-related services, since it's administered by our ministry, more life support system for all the stakeholders, including businesses. And then moving on to 5 and 6. Number 5, we are in the process of revising our policies in government procurement processes. I believe that all of you would will be aware this is something that is done in almost all the countries in the world. But we have not necessarily been able to take off or provide a more competitive arrangement for SMEs. So this is something that the government will be looking at, and hopefully in the next couple of months you will be able to see changes in this area. And apart from that, like I said earlier, duty exemption for SMEs, it's self-explanatory. I would not go into the details, but again, what I'm trying to say is that our focus is to increase exports, minimize those industries, and nurture those business activities that can be scaled up in the local or domestic economy, right? So this is what we are focusing on in terms of duty exemptions. And apart from that, businesses and illegal workers is a issue for us. we are in the process of dealing with all these arrangements that has been there in the past couple of years, I would say. And of course, one of the focus is to trying to regularize them as much as possible, because we all have to understand that all these kinds of business activities evolve because there's a demand for it, amongst which some of these business activities are not necessarily initiated, or it's not necessarily carried out by local entrepreneurs. So with an existing demand but inability for local entrepreneurs to provide these kinds of services, low-cost services, I think we should look at a system whereby we could regularize them as much as possible, right? And the other one is, of course, the legal reform package. This I forgot to actually include the most important one, which is the amendment to the SME Act. But I would like to note that this is just a bunch of laws and regulations that we are working on at this point in time. But again, we are looking at another, I believe, 2 or 3 tranches of legal reform which will be initiated through our ministry. But these are the most important at this point in time. I think all of you would have heard that Consumer Protection Amendment Bill, as well as the Competition Bill, is already. You would realize that the existing regime has a major restriction for certain types of business activities, including retail trade. So we are reviewing these legislations with a view that we have to cater for the next 10 to 15 years, and we have to review this legislation with a view that how we intend to further develop our economy with the engagement of both local entrepreneurs and foreign entrepreneurs, right? And apart from that, of course, Companies Act Amendment Bill is like a complete revamp of the existing regime. I think almost it has taken a little bit longer than expected, but of course this is in the pipeline too. And apart from that, we are also, I forgot to include, we are also reviewing the Foreign Investment Act, complete revamp of the existing regime, and few legislations that we have to repeal, including the law on cafes, cafeterias, restaurants, and canteens, as well as the law on sale of imported goods. And these are the, up to MIRA every month or every other. These are the key legislations that we are looking in the short term. But of course, we will be, like I said earlier, legislation such as insolvency bill, as well as the secure transactions bill, which is already initiated by the Maldives Monetary Authority, and the bill will also be in the pipeline. And the 9th one, of course, I think all of you would have in a lot of emphasis on, and you would have definitely seen that we put a lot of emphasis on doing that. When we speak about the entrepreneurship ecosystem, NGOs plays a very important. Have already seen the limitations many entrepreneurs face in the absence of functional associations and sector-specific association who had policy for these of forming new and supporting individuals to form new NGOs, as well as supporting the existing NGOs to ensure that pillar for the future businesses. And the last, addressing the sector or industry specific issues. Here looking at key sectors, ICT sector as well as education sector. And I think when we speak about how we should engage private sector and how we could possibly, as from the government as well as from the private sector, how could we possibly support the SME ecosystem and nurture is extremely important role. Entrepreneurship, which I believe hopefully will be discussed, one of those key things that has to jointly long-term training programs, skill development programs, as well as for all the graduates in other specialized sectors. Because if you don't, SMEs could possibly provide better for the betterment of the economy. I think if we are unable to do a doctor, even if you are a nurse, or and one of those key components or key pillars of the basis of the economy that you are working in, right? So it's throughout, and I think today we will get from, of course, Mr. Harris, but then again, ICT SEC provides support, and especially when it comes to access to finance, because the type of work they do, because they do not have collateral, we have to support ICT sector entrepreneurs. So this is another entry with the ICT sector sector. Apart from that, education sector, the last one, the main idea here is to promote education as a business, right? I think, and what kind of expectation the Maldivian community has over them, that it's for-profit business per se. So I think because then only we'll be able to advocate for higher quality education in the business convention too. So with all of these things, what sort of outcome are we looking at? We want to increase, of course, increase the number of SMEs. This is, I would like to His Excellency President in his opening remarks at the SME Development Finance Corporation, to increase the number of SMEs. So how do we necessarily do this? We have to, of course, look at a very carefully carved out policy to environment. There is a conducive environment for new entrepreneurs to come in. They should not be scared to start a business, right? From that, the things that we always get to hear, we have to, of course, increase, and of course, market access is also something important. If we have a lot of local producers, and if we are alongside, we also have to work on market access matters, and we have to believe that SME itself is the backbone of our economy, and they are here to stay. We have to create a conducive environment for them to be right. So with this, I conclude my presentation, and I would like, nobody has necessarily said anything about it, but yeah, I would like to open the floor for questions. Of course, more than happy to take note if there are any areas that we have necessarily missed in terms of developing the future strategy as well as the policy for SMEs. So I would like to open the floor. So does this necessarily mean that everyone is waiting for the last session to MP? Honorable MP, shall I share my personal views? Yeah. I think this is the best. We have been discussing about how contributions, and of course, I believe that pension fund, investment fund in the country, we should actually look at, identified, already mentioned in Mr. Manik's presentation. How could we possibly devise certain strategies, certain policies to creating financial products for SMEs, right? Because SMEs need not necessarily always live through cycle. I mean, they usually go through a life cycle. If they survive, they end up being large businesses within 10-15 years, or let's say 5 to 10 years if you are a high-tech startup company. Something that we should actually think beyond what we have been doing at this point in time. We should be looking at the capital markets mainly, and also trying to remain as a more conducive environment for foreign investors, because there's also FDI for small scale entrepreneurs domestically. So I think re-strategize and look at policies that would, number one, create a more conducive environment for FDIs. Number two, create a more conducive environment for new entrepreneurs and other financial institutions to innovate. So that's what I think should be the answer for this question, right? Thank you. We'll just go ahead with your question, and I think I should hand over the floor to the Secretariat.
I'm Bari Rashid. I'm not hearing the tone that was struck by the minister. We can't do that without academia. So we would like to have a marriage of the private sector. We like to make is that a lot of students who are doing research, unable to come with good for giving them the data. A lot of studies are being done, but it is open source or otherwise. So I think we have to make a good attempt to come out with the data, to give information and sharing and research. Thank you.
Mr. Rashid, I do happens to be one of those center points to disseminate data to a lot of student requests from, I think, a student from MAPS College who was doing some research. And we should focus on enabling other government agencies to, let's say, line ministries such as Health Ministry on Food and Drug, and also the construction. But then again, when I come to think of it, there are two issues. Yes, but the quality of data, is it clean data? This is a question that we have to ask ourselves. If you ask me 4,000, but if when I give the data to a student, the student goes home with the assumption that there are 34,000 active businesses, but no, that's not the case. So I think the National University as well as other education service providers should either with government institutions to improve the quality of data we could share with. I will conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Miss. Our next presentation is on access to finance by the SME Development Finance Corporation, STFC. It is the first ever financial institution in startups and MSMEs. Please welcome Mr. Ahmad Zainat.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to you. My topic for the day is, and before I get deeper into my topic, I would like to thank Maldives Pension speak here and set in the enabling private sector as the current theme for the year. I think it's a very important in the SME segment in the country. In my presentation things, firstly, I will give a brief about the current SME landscape. Then I will move on to the current in the country and for our solutions. As you may have known, as an initiative of the government, and it's 100% government-owned entity, easy access to finance for SMEs. SME Act was enacted in 2013, but as registrar has gone to the ministry to register, it's a bit difficult to tell you all how some estimate number of SMEs was that we look at the MIRA filing, basically businesses their financials with MIRA. We believe that there are more than 90% of the local businesses can be considered as that's around 6,600 and even higher or more, because this may exclude the home-based workers who are not required to file tax. Then these SMEs do, what kind of work do they do? In short, they do all sorts of work. They engage in all the sectors of the businesses. Some of the key sectors are highlighted here. More than 1/3 of the SMEs are engaged in wholesale and retail trade. This commerce, followed by construction and real estate, and only 6% of SMEs are engaged in tourism sector. We may combine accommodation and food services with tourism. That would make it to 11. These are not all. Okay, next question is, are we really funding the SMEs? Do we? Again, we don't have data on that. So what I'm trying to highlight here is that 44% of the private sector lending is towards tourism sector, where SME representation is less than 10%. So I think it's not adequate. Lending remains low to sectors where SME engagement is high. So these are sectors like construction, commerce, fisheries, and agriculture. I'm not trying to say that we are overexposed to tourism. Fewer SMEs are engaged in for the development of SMEs in the country. Then I'll move on to challenges faced by SMEs. So the key is the registrar has also highlighted on that. Some factors that in the country is requirement for approach a bank. They always, I'm talking about the country in Maldives, they always require immovable property for them to get a loan here in the country. It's not cash flow based lending, so not all the SMEs have access to a immovable property. So again, absence of cash flow based lending. So it's always asset based in the country. So few opportunities, but not enough. It up to 1 million rupiah, but scheme is not sufficient to cater for the requirement. SMEs or larger at the population level as well. Population, it is difficult to provide banking services to on each island or to provide such services. Recently, with the development of technology, some effort has been made, but it's again not sufficient. It's limited. They don't have proper, they lack ability to properly manage their cash flows, their resources accurately, and this. So not aware of the income that to provide finance is limited access to markets. This is if you are a farmer in the island, it is difficult to sell their since usually they are in large quantity, so it is difficult in an urban center. So they have other issue is that for even so it's an area that needs to be focused as well. Of SDFC. Basically, what I have covered earlier is the rate of SDFC. Better opportunities for the development of the country. We will have more. We can widen our tax base. Creation of jobs. We may not be possible to provide employees 6,000 a year, and the government alone or the entrepreneurship, I think they can earn a living without going to a job. They can have their own business. Access to finance. Through STFC, we hope to provide better financial opportunities, improve in financial literacy. This is through business center cooperation. I'll not repeat on that. Okay, lastly, I'll talk about how STFC is going to help the SMEs in providing finance. So here's our approach. Introduction of, we believe that certain sectors needs to be developed, certain sectors needs to be prioritized. We have introduced products that are targeted to local guest houses and development of agriculture sector. So through STFC, we'll be able to find SMEs, equipment finance, because a lot of SMEs need to upgrade their asset base, and they find it difficult to get financing through securities. Most of the banks require a immovable property for them to get a loan. And for expansion of the business, on to our next stage, they need investment, they need financing. So one way getting a loan. Specific products that's like for tourism and for agriculture. And we will have products that will specifically cater for startups. In Maldives, I think we don't have much avenues for startups to get their finance. It's difficult. annoying actually if you're an entrepreneur. I think you can ask Haris about that. And we will try to provide startup finance for SMEs. We will have facilities up to 2 million that will cater for new startups. Next one is one of the issues highlighted earlier was about we will have will be concessional in our terms in terms and equity requirement. These are the issues that make it difficult for SMEs to get finance. So our interest rate, which I think is the lowest in the country, flexible security requirement, we will be able to fund some projects unsecured of the project, and our tenors will be from 2 to 10 years. And equity requirement will be for the feasibility of the project, risk profile, and capacity of the customer. So we will not say that this our one particular product is 20%. Rather, we will say that for this particular profile, our requirement is 20%, or for certain cases, it could be even 5%. I think this will ease. This will be easy for the SMEs, and it will encourage. Then we have priority sectors. These are the priority sectors of the government that we would like to finance. So local tourism, construction, fisheries, agriculture, and ICT. So we'll prioritize these sectors in financing, in providing finance. And again, we will have priority groups as well. So the government strategy is that they would like to prioritize youth, women, and digitize their applications. And we have an allocation of 20% for this particular group. And a key focus in SME development is continuous monitoring. We will not simply give away funds and wait for them to default. We will continuously monitor their performance. We will encourage them to give us their employment details, how many they have employed, to their livelihood. We will monitor them quarterly, depending on the project size. And lastly, we will work closely with Business Center Corporation for ancillary services. This is for support of SMEs. For example, it could be providing them technical assistance. For example, it could be program on keeping up their books, financial literacy, or tax filing. Such things could be covered through Business Center Corporation. And with this, I will end up in my presentation, and I hope our approach will give an enabling environment for SMEs, and we will be, like Registrar has said, that it's not just, it's an ecosystem. All the ingredients, all in this ecosystem needs to work perfectly to have a better. STFC is one of the solution, and there are many more to come. The regulations has to be revised, and other support services have to be provided through government strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zainab. We hope the audience has gained new and useful information on the opportunity. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Lamia Ibrahim, Manager at the Ministry of Economic Development, to take us through the future of Lamia Ibrahim.
Okay, thanks.
Rahman Rahim. Welcome. Adivit. Just a quick question before I start. If you've heard of Business Center, because we've established, okay, just very few. So I think just a quick introduction on Business Center Corporation. It's a state-owned enterprise developed about in 2017. So under ADB and IDB financing, we actually have developed an SME development project. So we have established business centers throughout Maldives, in Kurudu, Fushi, and Addu in 2014. So from then onwards, we have established 4 more business centers, one in Nafar, and we have business centers in Kudahuadu, Tinadu, Hitadu, and so forth. So the purpose of these business centers is to facilitate our SMEs, and actually for those who are interested in starting a business, we just want to hold their hands and to bring them to the level playing field. And since there's an SME Act from 2013 onwards, under the SME Act, we are supposed to establish business centers throughout Maldives. So we have just started from that. So moving on, these are where the business centers are operating right now. And there are about 3 employees, a manager, business development officer, and a training coordinator, and an admin finance assistant, who are very easy because of our geography, and also because of the employment opportunities to find qualified people who will be based in this premise. Just a quick snapshot of our vision and mission. So we just want to create an enabling environment for the SME. Some of the key objectives of the BCC is SMEs. Then we also want to facilitate, have a platform to grow from micro to small, or from small to medium enterprises. So one of the objectives was providing financing or access to finance. But in the previous presentation by our Registrar of Companies, as she highlighted, having one of our untimely loan schemes did not really prove it was the best solution. So during the past 10 years, we have been trying to establish an SME bank. And once they actually get the loan from STFC, what we want to prove is we will be there to monitor them, or if they have an issue in the disbursement, or if they are having repayment issues, we will ensure that they do not default. So we will be, I think, the focal point who will ensure that we can have a. So the services provided by BCCs to micro, small, and medium enterprises. We actually provide advice and business consultancy. If they have an issue in developing an application or business plan, then they come in. They walk into, they also write to us from Facebook or SMS. We can be reachable from various ways. And also, since in this current advancement, we also want to move from the current platform base. So we also focus on innovation and developing new products which cater to the current environment as well. On the way forward, we also facilitate BCs in conducting feasibilities, a lot of product development and quality control, business information sourcing, and some of the other things which also may not be mentioned here is we are also trying to create a platform for local producers and manufacturers to showcase their products and also sell their products in airport. So I think this is one of the ways for them to promote their products, and also for us to start exporting. Steps involved. There's a lot of milestones to achieve, but it's only a start. And also we want to create an incubation facility as well, because Spark Hub is one of the avenue. Maybe Haris will also emphasize on that more later on. But there are so many new businesses, but they are not really sure on how to go about. Also, they do not have enough financing to have an office or set avenue for them to actually start up their work. We will try to provide them with an incubation or co-working space. If they have IT difficulties, we will try to cater to those needs as well. There are no staff. I think in the next 5 to 6 months, we will be manning the business cooperation center, and also we will be working with SDFC very closely. In a month's time, we will be able to establish the office just next to SDFC. So you can visit us and then have a look. If you have any questions, wait for later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lamia, for the detailed persisting SMEs. In this segment, we open the floor to highlight stories. We have here with us today Ali Haris, co-founder of Payer, Ahmad Afra, owner of Coffee Lab Roasters, and Fanan Baker. First, I would like to
Good morning, everyone, in advance. My name is Haris. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Payer, and there are a couple of, one of them is empowering and driving the entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem in the music streaming application. And I have also a product in my first journey. And today, through the presentation, my goal is with the vision to create a one-stop payment solution in Maldives. 2016, we started with a problem, not an idea like most people in the coffee table come up with ideas. We actually had a problem, bill payment problem. And back in 2016, there were no bill payment application in the country, right? You had to go to a shop, and when you stay in that shop in a queue for an hour, when you finally go, when they accept Stelco, they will not accept MWSC. If they have Uridu, they will not have Dirag, right? So this was the problem, and you have to go to multiple shops to pay your bills. And in 2016, with the advancement in technology and innovation, this shouldn't really be the way we should be doing things, right? So we thought to ourselves, what could be the solution, right? And of course, the easiest solution would be with all the bill payment processes, right? But then again, we thought there is 2016, we shouldn't still make them stay in queues and pay their bills, right? So we came up with the idea to create a mobile application, and we see a mobile commerce platform where there are different services. It shouldn't just be bills. There are so many other services which you pay for, and all of these services should be under one platform, right? So imagine if you had to keep several apps on your phone to use once a month. It's not very convenient, right? So our idea was to aggregate everything into one app. And we obviously needed capital, right? Already 5 years into another bootstrap company, and it was very, very challenging for us. We were already struggling. We were a service-based company. There were so many, delays in the payments, and we were struggling with managing the cash flow. And we didn't want to do the same for this company. So we thought to ourselves, if we don't get any money, we can't do that. We don't have the energy to, do this again, right? So, but, in order to raise money, we need to have something to show people, right? So we came up with the MVP, or a prototype, and a plan. So this is how it should look like. It's a bit very different from the one we have now. This was created in 2016. So we would have different services, and this is basically into, creating this product because this their services, right? And there were so many opportunities available in this app. And our idea was, let's create a super app. And a super app is now an emerging trend in technology where a lot of services is in one app rather than several different apps, right? And people would usually come to me and tell me, Haris, can you build an app for this? Can you build an app to find a tuition teacher for my daughter? Can you build an app to book a salon appointment? But the problem is you can't build these apps separately. It's not feasible. You can't do it, all of these services into one platform. So we created a plan, like, we would first do bills. We would then maybe have tickets, we would have a marketplace where other, small vendors would come and sell their services online, right? In 2016, we wouldn't do that here in 2019. This would probably be back then we have an idea of an NFC card where, parents could give to their child as well. So they could use in schools, canteen, and they could, keep track of their child's finances as well without in contrast to giving them physical cash. So the source was, we checked if there were any grants for startup, because in a lot of countries right now, they have grants for startup. Here's $50,000, go build something, come back to us. So there were no startup grants, and back then there was this promising product called Guest We waited 4 months and we didn't hear anything from them. And it could be because, when I look back in retrospect and the value of technology, we are stable in this country because the risk is higher and it might take, longer other things you would do. So we weren't able to, succeed in that research. And finally, and we got some people interested, but the drawback was we were only able to raise 25% of what we wanted initially, and we gave away 25% more stake than we wanted to give because we really wanted to do this for several reasons. And that is because nobody actually has seen a tech startup succeed in this country, and that was one reason which was driving us. STFC obviously would provide more opportunities. I even had a chat with Zinad earlier when STFC was being formed, and more private placement. Nurban, Ashan and the team showed me the product. It was very, very promising because platform, and I think there's a presentation on that today as well. And so, compared to 2016, I see some change. Probably next year I'll be here complaining about that. Scale down, right? Because we only decided we will not pay ourselves anything. We will share, the resources we had from our business with this company. And then we went online and got a couple of other resources. One is FB Start, which is Facebook for startups, where we got some resources from them, including, advertising credits on Facebook, which was a very good thing. And we got $5,000 grant from Amazon, which actually covers to a couple of more resources from here and there to actually finally make this happen. And so finally in 2018, we started the service, but we were a little bit late to the market. When we finally came into the market, everybody was telling me, no, people still don't understand the concept of a super app, and it's very difficult to convince. So that was a challenge for us. And the other challenge being there's no regular, and which is a very, very big fintech company to actually operate. And my personal favorite, the banks, they do not want, from what I see, they do not want a fintech company to succeed in this country. They have imposed so many limitations on these things. Just to give you one example, we have a wallet in our application, right? But we would be able to, add funds for 199 people only per day. So there's a bottleneck there. I have spoken to the banks, and for some reason, this is rocket science to them. So limitation from banks is there. Then again, they are taking that free. And merchants, bringing merchants was more difficult than ever as well. And finally, in October last year, we actually launched this product. And this is some screenshots of our application. And how this is different from the rest of the apps in the market is when we actually did research on bill payment, it was a very, very frustrating issue, right? People would pay their bills and still, end up being disconnected, right? And we actually checked what is actually happening here. And there were two reasons why. It wasn't because of a system failure. It was because of a human factor. One being, most people would pay the wrong bill, believe it or not. And they would actually pay the wrong amount. And, systems are systems, right? They are programmed to, if you pay, as far as the system is concerned, even if you don't pay one lari, they'll still disconnect your service, right? So we thought to ourselves, how could we solve this problem? And we devised a solution where, customers would just enter their billing information once. And when their bill is ready, we would tell you, okay, here's your bill. Your bill is ready. Your amount is this. And we wouldn't let the user enter that amount, right? Because they will always enter it wrong. So our customers, and right now we have multiple billers. We have airtime, recharge, and data for Uridu and Dirago. We have gift cards. We have mobile and internet payments for, again, Uridu and Dirago. And all of our payments are secure and instant. We actually make sure that when somebody pays from our application, whether their bill is actually paid. The infrastructure is very bad, so we sometimes have to do a lot of manual work to make sure that their bill is actually paid. And like I said, we provide smart notifications. When your bill is ready, we'll tell you your bill is ready. And we give you option to manage multiple accounts in one, because sometimes you might have a separate line for your work, sometimes you might have a separate line for your personal use. So all of these services would be, managed inside these applications. And we actually reached out to other utility companies and services, and they still didn't see a use for them to come to a platform like this. And that is because they don't actually understand the concept of the super app. Just to give you one example, we are all familiar with the ride-hailing app Grab, right? And recently, Grab has added the top-up feature to their mobile app, where you could actually top up your mobile phone. Do you think is it because people can't top up their phone? No, right? Wherever you go, you can top up your phone. It is because we have a new emergence of concept. We have this new concept of super app where different services has to be provided under one app. So I don't know, for some reason we still can't understand the importance there. And when I look at the challenges we have right now, one is scalability. Like I said, the bank is a bottleneck right now, and the other issue would be, retaining here as much as we need today. A lot of people are moving away from this country. The brain drain rate is very high, so we need to do something about that as well. And if we are to, raise funds again, we can't obviously afford to give a stake of our company anymore. We were too desperate if we have done that. Unless there are, better loans, and I hope to see those happening. And the other would be lack of policies. And when we have this lack of policies, it could go both ways, right? One might think lack of policies means you could do whatever you want. Maybe that is true. On the other hand, the bigger corporates get to abuse it as well, right? So which is the case right now. So they are crushing the startups because lack of policies. And this is a national level one. The next one, fraud, lack of awareness, and lower digital literacy rate makes it very difficult for a technology company to actually operate. And the last, the lack of support from government and the state-owned enterprises. And I was very happy to hear from the Honorable Minister for Finance that government is actually, focusing and emphasizing a lot on technology, innovation, and, all of those things. So the last time I went to, talk with the government companies, I will not say the name, their response to me was, if you want to pay this bill, there are so many services available, you can pay this bill. And my immediate response to them was, before when we had a bridge, we used to take our motorbike in a ferry. Do we still do that? Still, it is two solutions, but convenient one with, less operational cost compared to, you running your own app with a team compared to this, right? So for some reason, they still don't get it. And I hope, more people would think about it, do more research, and actually make this happen. And with all these limitations, why do we keep going? There are some days where we would think to ourselves, why are we doing this? We could go do something else. We don't have to help people pay their bills, right? But the reason why we keep doing this despite all these challenges is because of our customers. They actually love this product. These are some of the reviews. To summarize these reviews, most of the people love our layout and how convenient it is, and some of them say this is the best app in Maldives. It's very easy to use. The response is very fast. So this is what keeps us going. And as well as we know that technology and innovation is inevitable, right? It's going to happen one way or the other. The way we do things are going to change. So that is the reason which keeps us going further. And our customers still want more. And when we spoke to them, they want card payments. They want, more Wemco, more services basically to pay to cafe shop. So this tells us that people prefers to do things in a more convenient way rather than doing in the conventional way. So that is what that is what keeps us in the future. What we are planning to do. Obviously, more billers and more services would be available through this application. And one of the things we would like to do is contactless payment as well, and scheduled payments and all those things. And one thing which we are working right now is financial advisory, analytics, and budgets, right? Just to show this how this works is through our application, you would be able to visualize and see your expenses and your spending. And still, even to function this well, we still need the data from the bank, which is still not possible. We could only show what's happening inside our app. So like I said, this to be a successful product, we need this synergy to happen. The banks and fintech companies need to work together. So this is something we are working on. And the other would be, through artificial intelligence and the new technologies, we will actually help people make better financial decisions, right? We will tell them, we will help them reach financial goals. We will give them financial recommendations so that they could do they could actually make better financial. That's that's how our journey has been so far, and we invite all of you to come and try this application, and just tell us what you think. If you don't like this, tell us why you don't like it. We actually like comments, feedback to improve and make this better service. So what I would like to see is more people come together and actually invest in the startup. And in the introductory presentation given by the CEO of the pension, they have said they are currently investing more than 90% of in T-bills, right? Make it more diverse. Yeah, there are risks in technology as well, but there could be a place where when you invest in those new things, the return would be much higher than the conventional investing methods, right? So technology, I think, has a lot of opportunity.
Next, I would like to welcome Matafra.
Ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. I would like to first thank Pension Office for giving me this opportunity. It's very exciting to be here to learn about all these opportunities from the parties here giving the presentation. First, so as requested from Pension Office, I would like to share my story, my journey with Coffee Lab Roasters here in this morning. As well, I'm also still learning to become a public speaker, as you can see from hear from my tone and everything. So actually, coffee helps you live longer. 3 to 4 cups a day is a moderate consumption. Will help you get a longer cardiovascular diseases, type 2 diabetes, and Parkinson's disease as well. Coffee has only 1 or 2. It's what you put in the coffee that makes it 90% of 98% of the coffee is actually less antioxidants and other stuff. Good stuff. Moderate. So my journey, life. I mean, a Maldivian kid who started from a very basic island. So you could probably picture me as the one in the red shorts. So I moved to Mali in better education, did some in Maldives English, then did some other jobs like photocopy shops, VHS delivery boy in a VHS renting place. It was a 500, and they will give me my bag will be full of VHS tapes. So I go to the addresses and deliver, which I treasure a lot today. It's not because my parents were not supportive that helped me a lot in life. I mean, after these jobs, I was an investigator and then a video and image analyst. Did a lot of the stuff that you see in CSI TV shows and stuff. Then this job was very interesting to me. I loved every bit of this work, but there was something lacking. I wanted to. I'm naturally a more. I like to interact with people and have fun with people, interacting with people. So this would be a typical day at the digital. Create something that's on my own, but I always have me coffee, so I would homebrew. In late 2013, I met someone who was very passionate about great coffee, and this day he holds my hand in this, and then which I can never. There was a. So then I started how can I change the routine? So I was especially drawn to special. It's good. To give you a small introduction of world's coffee, coffee graded above SCA cupping protocol, which is a standardized evaluation process. This is there's transparency. You know where the coffee is coming from. We can tell you how high is the elevation, what's the varietal, in the way we call it mood, its own characteristics in terms of tasting and preparing the coffee. Is there's an emphasis on this. I was very much of these values. So here you see hand-picked that all these are manual work. Then we do roasting, evaluate, then we prepare the coffee. All these things are done by professionals who actually study, spend their time studying and learning all these skills. I thought this, we actually as a team market for Maldives because generally all people in when I travel abroad, they ask, isn't it a tea country? Actually, we recognize that it's not seasonal, and so after researching, reading books, experimenting with others, brew methods and everything, then started learning hands-on skills as well. Then from different parts of the world, from different farms, different sessions. This was in 2000, early 2014. To come in, we do standardized cupping sessions, tasting sessions. This was a coffee gathering we did one time. So then it was actually the time to start the business. So first it was what are the options available. So because there was a combined salary with my wife, get a loan like this. So many of those reasons, they would have been acquire any funds. Investor came into the rescue and he helped me this day reinvest. Tasting sessions and all. Sorry, July we registered Trade Ministry. Then to decide between the police and this decision between decided to give 100. So after point, we needed to bring give something that's very different from. So we started a very small cafe about specialty coffee. Each and every customer, I was specialty coffee is. Then we family room by people, product by everything has to be done on my own. Marketing, accounting, coffee delivery to other cafes. All these things has to be done, on my own. Then also had to become a stay-home dad. We quit, resigned. This was so this. Then the other one is at the cafe. Okay, first 10 months of family room was focused on just we didn't bill. We just kept a donation box. Everybody who went inside tried the coffee and they put a donation in the box, and apparently the next year Mira had a problem with us of the donation, which is something I learned at that time. So and pay rest GST on the rest. So years still it was not enough as a coffee shop. So we needed to adjust the strategy. New focus on. Then we started new focus. So we could actually to think of supplying to many professionals. Then it would be. I mean, first we should train more coffee professionals. Should be that do. So with this in mind, places and acquired many in coffee and became a licensed Q-raised SCA. After that, we launched coffee, Maldives coffee, and actually get barista courses in Maldives, so they don't have to travel now like I did. So now we put a lot of focus on developing young people into this industry with FHTS, which we teach. Right now there are some interns as well. Interns every year at Family. I mean, more growth in the industry. In the far side exercise going on, if we are tasting different types of fruits, familiarizing our taste buds with those individual fruits so that we can recognize those notes from coffee that we drink. This is a session at the FHTS. So as it stands, Coffee Lab Roasters is primarily a coffee specialty grade of the world, local product branding as well. We are a distributor as well. We bring in equipment, bar equipments, and we supply those down to cups. And then we have a family room. So at the moment, this is where we are. So as a result of all this hard work, just a week ago, we have won 2 bronze medals in tasting competition. So the reason we submitted this our coffee to this competition that was held in Australia is because we are so isolated in a different country, in a small tiny nation, in a tiny island. We thought we should evaluate where we are. And also they saying this is the median score. It would be a good competition. To our surprise, our 2 coffees, one is actually called Horuashi, because I wanted to relate product, because coffee for us is actually a people thing. It's a mediator for people to socialize. So for socializing, what's better place that we had in our islands than Horuashi? So which has Ethiopia, Sumatra, and Guatemala coffee in it. So Ethiopian Yergashef coffee won this bronze medal. Thank you. Just access to reinvestment funds, then actually retaining local customers before. A big problem that I'm facing, because I think one of the main contributing factor for this problem is right now the generation of youngsters are being provided working for it. Would you agree with me? So because of that, actually this generation doesn't really realize the value of money. That's why I said in the beginning, I really value that experience I had in the beginning, because I have lived like that. I mean, worked for it. So retaining local employees is a challenge. I have been able to retain local employees in our business. They are I have a very hardworking, enthusiastic, who are happy to come to cafe and work every single day. They take pride in doing what they do. Then the other thing is to emphasize on is opportunity for really trying to survive and getting some results as well, and then getting opportunity market is very difficult. There's always some kind of these not doesn't align, in short. So basically these challenges with these opportunities for goals for future. We want to a little bit and controlled partner cafes, and also develop more local professionals in this industry. Okay, we'll end with another coffee fact. In 16th century, enough coffee was ground for divorce. MP. So then it's good for us as well. For giving thanks to Pension Office for giving me this.
Thank you, Afra. Please welcome Fanan Habib.
I am Fanan, and I am here today to tell you of Flawless by Fanny. But first, I would like to I never imagined being here in an audience like this. And after my postgraduate, I am working on Flawless, my very exciting for me to be here, given this year's. Thank you, Maldives Pension Admins, to Ms. Sujata for making this happen for me. First, I'd like to show you what I do. So I'm gluten out late last year. Being gluten allowed, bread, cookie, everything you saw in the video was gluten free. I hope you didn't notice a difference. I started with one very beautiful person here, I think. I posted it on Instagram. A lot of comments and a lot of requests to buy. So I thought to myself, there was a demand on Instagram. It could work, right? So I decided to combine my passion for baking and my knowledge of business, and one fine day in October 2018, Flawless went up on Instagram. Let me just tell you a little bit about gluten first. It's a protein found in wheat, rye, and barley, and those who are affected by gluten could have one of these three conditions. The first one being a wheat allergy or celiac disease, which doesn't affect a lot of people, but then there's non 50% of the population. The symptoms are very common to other diseases and celiac. You can determine the conditions via blood tests usually eat, mainly being prosciutto. Yeah. And okay, what's most important about testing if you're gluten sensitive is because a lot of doctors are also now agreeing with this issue of gluten sensitivity and prescribing a gluten-free diet instead of a handful of pills, I would say. Little is still known about gluten sensitivity and its effects on your body, and much research is yet to be done. But like I said, more and more people are becoming aware, and sufferers of, say, arthritis or polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, diabetics, and even cancer patients and survivors are advised to follow a gluten-free diet to reduce or avoid internal inflammation. So that's the people that I am baking my bakes for. That's my market. The majority, I would say, just isn't aware that this is something they need. But awareness is increasing, so I believe that my market is also growing. But we don't get a lot of gluten-free options in Mali. Very few vendors offer these products, and however, they are not always available and are usually very, very expensive. Even the ingredients that I get for my bakes, they are so expensive that I had to price my products at a higher price, way more than I would say an affordable rate, or compared to the gluten-containing options that we usually get. And this doesn't help me. This does not help a young business when it is trying to capture a niche market. Yeah. This is also one of the reasons why I'm still baking from home. At least my overheads are low. I often get asked why I don't collaborate with other established businesses that would generate sales, right? But there are two things. First thing being, I have experienced a severity of allergies and intolerances, and that means I do not want someone else to.
I would say suffer, maybe it's a strong word, but I would say I don't want anyone else to suffer from my products. What I'm trying to say is gluten can be transferred via cross-contamination. You have to be very sure that that it's clean. Sorry. So I haven't been able to trust anyone else to take the precautions that I take. The second point being, I am now baking at capacity. I do this part-time. I have a full-time job as well. So I don't have the time to bake more, and I do not have the space to bake more or store my products. I use my family kitchen, a common kitchen, which means everyone else in the family would want to use it as well. But to avoid cross-contamination, I take over the kitchen and I make sure that it's just me working at that time. I get limited kitchen time and limited space for storing my ingredients and final products as well. So I believe now it's time for me to expand my business, maybe move out of my house, have an outlet, but the norm for business profitability is achieving economies of scale. But my products are priced at a premium and my market is niche. So I believe that I will have to have a little bit of everything if I want a profitable business. So my idea is this: I would like to have a coffee shop within a bakery, and sooner or later I believe I will have to start importing my own ingredients as well, and wholesale and retail them at the same time. Then only would my business keep afloat. But see, that means I am asking for a huge investment or a huge startup cost. I'm estimating for me to move on from where I am right now, I would need at least 1 million Maldivian rupiah just to take the next step. But there's the other cost, like I still have to consider all the other costs. But then I look at my options. Say bank loans or government schemes. I did not hear about the SDFC before, so I was wondering, I am a recent graduate and I come from a small to medium income earning family. What would I put up as collateral? That was my biggest question, and that's what I believe was my biggest obstacle when it comes to obtaining financial help. Then the next question is, would my savings be enough? To be honest, after my monthly expenses, I really don't have much saved. And then I look at possible investors, and I haven't been very lucky yet. But I am very excited to hear about the establishment of SDFC, and I am very excited that you consider people like us who doesn't have a collateral to put up, and I hope you're open to hear more about our plans, our dreams, instead of just putting up a budget. Like here, I hope that you would hear us out and be open to fund our plan instead of just giving us a limited budget. Because I believe if you want to do something, you will have to do it right. Like my colleagues had said as well, the main reason that they haven't been able to expand is because they do not have reinvestment. So if say all that is provided, you can be the best that you want to be. And I also believe when it comes to my business would be in the F&B sector, which means it's very easy to replicate. So imagine by the time I start small, I earn enough money, I pay off my loans, I want to expand, my competition would have caught up. The rich keeps getting richer, right? Yes. So Mr. Zinad had mentioned that he wants to see more out-of-schoolers or graduates become entrepreneurs, but we become entrepreneurs and then we get, how do I say, the competition. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. They would basically put us out of business. And that's not a solution. We should be able to stay in business. We should be able to breathe as well. I think my time's up. So anyway, I will figure out how to color my dreams. And in the meantime, I'd like you to keep in mind that I bake delicious gluten-free bakes, which are also dairy-free and sugar-free, and are available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you, Fanan. Once again, I would like to thank you, Haris, Afra, and Fanan, for your truly inspirational stories. We invite all our participants to give feedback on this event. You can provide feedback through events feedback function in our mobile app. At the end of the event, we will have a lucky draw among all the participants who sent feedback, and 2 lucky winners will be selected. This concludes the morning session of Maldives Finance Forum 2019. We will now break for lunch. Lunch is with compliments of Bank of Maldives and will be served at Bagita restaurant. We will see you back here at 2 p.m. Thank you.